All right, today we're going to dig into the incredible story of a company you've probably never even heard of, but honestly, it once defined Australia's entire technological ambition. We're talking about Amalgamated Wireless Australia, or AWA for short. And let me tell you, it's a story of innovation, national pride, and, well, a truly unbelievable ending.
So let's just jump right into the big mystery here. Picture this. It's 2021. The whole world is screaming for more computer chips, right? And what's happening in Sydney? A world-class semiconductor factory is getting torn down to build a train line. I mean, it sounds absolutely absurd, doesn't it? To figure out how on earth this happened, we've got to go way, way back, over 100 years.
You see, it all starts with a problem that is just so fundamentally Australian, being really, really far away from everything. I mean, back in the early 20th century, Australia was literally weeks away from Great Britain by ship. All its communication, it depended on a few pretty fragile underwater telegraph cables. So this whole reality of being isolated, that's what gave birth to AWA.
Okay, so with the threat of war hanging in the air, Australia knew it needed a seriously robust wireless network. After a bit of corporate back and forth, two big rivals, Marconi and Telefunken, they merged their local businesses in 1913, and bam, AWA was born. But the real game changer, that came in 1918. AWA's director, a guy named Ernest Fisk, pulled off a direct wireless link to the UK. This was huge. The government was so blown away that by 1922, it actually became the majority shareholder, a really unique public-private partnership. And the result? The Via Beam service. By 1929, this thing was carrying half of the entire country's international messages. Just incredible.
All right, so AWA has now secured its spot as this national communications champion. But they didn't stop there. They set their sights on a whole new frontier, manufacturing. You see, they wanted to be more than just a utility company. They wanted to put their tech right into the homes of every single Australian.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. The connection to America's RCA is key here. Through their ties to Marconi, AWA got exclusive access to all of RCA's cutting-edge patents in the British Empire. Think about what a massive advantage that was. It let them build and sell radios under the super famous Radiola brand, and that basically kickstarted Australia's entire consumer electronics industry. And the sheer scale of this operation, it was just immense. I mean, to power all those new radios, AWA set up a joint venture just to make vacuum tubes. And get this, by 1939, right before World War II kicked off, their factory was pumping out 1 million tubes a year. 1 million! This wasn't just about business. This made Australia completely self-sufficient in a component that was absolutely critical for the war. This was, without a doubt, AWA's golden age. But after the war, things changed. The government had a new idea. Telecommunications should be state-controlled. So they nationalized AWA's really profitable network and sold off their shares. To make up for this huge hit to their revenue, AWA had to pivot, and boy did they. They went all in on manufacturing. We're talking everything from TVs to transistors. And this just shows you how sophisticated their work really was. By the 1950s, AWA was the only Australian-owned company actually making transistors. And just look at this process. It was incredibly detailed, precise work. Slicing pure germanium, meticulously placing tiny beads on it, and then fusing them in a furnace. For its time, this was absolute cutting-edge technology, and it was all happening right there, locally, in Australia. So for decades, AWA had been thriving. It was living behind this big wall of protective tariffs that kept all the foreign competition out. It was a national champion, totally shielded by national policy. But in the 1970s, that wall was about to come crashing down, hard. So what happened? Well, in 1972, the new Whitlam government came in and decided it was time to shake things up. Their plan to fight inflation and open up the economy? A sudden, sweeping 25% cut to all tariffs. The policy was just dropped on the industry, with almost no thought given to how these local companies that were built on protection, were supposed to handle the transition.
AHW's managing director at the time, John Hook, he could see the writing on the wall, and his warning from 1973 is, honestly, just chillingly accurate. He basically said, you've got to decide if you even want an electronics industry. He argued that electronics were as fundamental to the modern world as steel was to the Industrial Revolution. He was convinced that without a stable market, protected from a flood of cheap imports, Australia's entire high-tech defense and industrial base was in jeopardy.
And this right here just captures that shift perfectly. On one side, you've got the world AWA was built for, a protected market, high tariffs, local manufacturing, great profit margins. And on the other side, the new reality. That 25% tariff cut just opened the floodgates to cheaper imports, creating this immense pressure on prices. AWA's really labor-intensive production lines, like the one for those intricate little transistors we saw, they just couldn't compete anymore. So they were shut down.
Now, the company was definitely wounded, but it wasn't dead yet. They actually managed to survive by pivoting away from those mass-market consumer goods and getting into high-technology systems. But just as they were finding their footing again, a self-inflicted wound would turn out to be fatal.
Yeah, against all odds, AWA totally reinvented itself. They started focusing on systems engineering, on microelectronics, and then in 1988, they opened a brand new $65 million semiconductor fabrication plant, what we call a fab, at Homebush in Sydney. And this wasn't some rusty old factory. This thing was truly world-class.
And check this out, because the numbers here are what really tell the story. In 1988, AWA's fab was running a 1.2 micron process. Now, to give you some perspective, the company that would later become the world's biggest chip maker, TSMC in Taiwan, was still working on a 2 or 3 micron node. So for that moment in time, AWA was genuinely at the leading edge of global tech. No exaggeration. And they used this amazing capability to do some truly incredible things. That Homebush fab, it designed and built the custom chip that's at the very heart of the cochlear bionic ear, one of Australia's greatest and most life-changing inventions ever. This just proves the immense value of what was being created in that building. But then, disaster struck. In 1987, it came out that a 23-year-old foreign exchange trader at the company had, with zero oversight, racked up about $50 million in losses from speculative trades. $50 million! I mean, that is just a staggering amount of money. It completely wiped out a huge chunk of the company's profits, and more importantly, it exposed these shocking failures in management. So here's the bottom line. That scandal revealed a company that was way, way weaker than anyone had realized. It was financially crippled, it couldn't keep up in the fast-changing global market, and so the once mighty AWA was slowly dismantled and sold off piece by painful piece.
And that brings us right back to where we started, back to that cutting-edge factory at Homebush, the last great symbol of AWA's tech prowess, and its ironic, tragic end.
So after AWA collapsed, the fab gets sold in 1996 to an American company. Then it changes hands again in 2000 and is eventually spun off in 2008 into a new company called Solana. So it was still running, still making advanced electronics. But then, in 2019, the New South Wales government acquires the land and gives the company just 18 months' notice to get out. With not enough money to relocate, they had no choice. They had to shut it all down. And here it is, the final unbelievable irony. In 2021, the wrecking ball came for one of Australia's last commercial semiconductor fabs, and this happened in the exact same year that a crippling global chip shortage brought the world's supply chains to a grinding halt, and governments everywhere started frantically trying to build up their own domestic chip manufacturing. I mean, you just couldn't make this timing up. It's almost poetic in how tragic it is.
The story of AAWA is so much more than just some corporate history lesson. It really is a cautionary tale. As nations today are pouring billions and billions of dollars into trying to regain technological sovereignty, trying to build their own chip industries from scratch, it leaves us with a really big question. What is the true cost of just letting your own giants and the incredible capabilities they built fade into memory?